How do I know that painkillers are addictive? Because they make you happy. And some people will take loads of them and then they end up with an addiction to them, and it can be a real problem. It's similar to beer. Alcoholics, it's the brain chemistry. It's not their fault. When they drink beer or alcohol, it makes them feel happy. The more they drink, the happier they feel. But then there's the come down when they're coming off it. They're really unhappy, and it stresses them out completely. But I just know from experience of being around people. But yeah, I mean, when I was I started off as a milk lad. I was a paper lad before that, and eventually I ended up driving the van, and I had a big hole worn in me the trousers, my jeans and my trousers, and it was in cold weather, and I got an awful lot of pain in my knee from the cold. I had to go to the doctors about it because I was in so much pain. I had to take a few days off because I couldn't drive. And the doctor said to me, he gave me these tablets. He says, don't take too many of them. If the pain gets bad, come and see me. Don't take too many of them. I didn't know what they were, but they were actually painkillers. And that's why he told me not to take too many, because I'd become addicted to them. I couldn't have done without them. But I didn't. I don't take painkillers very often. And that's the thing somebody said to me about 7 years ago. I was in hospital for quite a while, and I was laid on a bed for ages, and my knees must have contracted. The internal part of the joint must have contracted, and I went for a really long walk out of the blue. I wasn't supposed to be out that long, but I stayed out because I couldn't help it. I didn't know where this place was. And by the time I got there, I was too late to get back. Well, I walked back. Might have been better to go on the bus, but I don't think I had any money on me. I wouldn't have known which bus to catch and stuff because I wasn't in my hometown. And they said that my knees weren't just worn, I had arthritis in them. They told me not to do more than 5 miles on my bike, push bike. Well, I've found when I get to 5 miles, the pain starts. At 5.5, it starts to go off, and by 6, it's gone completely. They wouldn't know that, though, because I think it was only a junior GP who diagnosed me, and another GP said, well, if the pain starts, stop. But I've found if I keep going, it goes off, and it doesn't come back again. But I mean, by the time I've done an 80-mile bike ride, I'm a bit stiff. I'm nearly 60, but yeah, well, I mean, what's the race distance for like Tour de France and that? About 160 miles a day. I don't do anywhere near that. The most I've ever done, I think, was about 80 miles in a day. And I went out the other night. I'd be about what? About 5 or 10 miles from home. And I went into a wood. And normally I go in about 60 to... I could see the other entrance. I think it was about 50 yards or metres away. I thought, I'll go in this way because there's nobody parked in the entrance. It is an entrance to the wood. It's a Forestry Commission place. And when I've been walking around the wood, they said, you haven't parked in the gateway, have you? I said, no, because they said, it's a right nuisance because we can't get the trucks there to do logging. There is an official car park up a lane. I thought, well, yeah, you can go in that entrance. It's open. There's a barrier, but there's an open part. And it was an awful footpath, and I was pushing my bike up it. It was terrible. It was slippery. It was muddy because it isn't used much, and there were bike tracks down it. And I got completely lost. And I noticed there was one set of bike tracks. I thought, coming back, I was lost, and I thought, well, I found 2 bike tracks, but I wasn't sure where I was. I thought, well, one must be mine, but there were no footprints, so it can't be mine. And it was dark, and my light was starting to go, and I just kept going and going and going. Eventually, I got to a place where I could see street lights. Usually, it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't usually they're out, most of them, but no, they leave so many on because they switch them off to save power, some of them. But I could see lights, and I just followed the track until I got to back to civilization, because I must have gone round and round in that wood for 5.5 hours. I was stumbling over trees. There was fallen trees that you had to climb over, branches that were about 3 feet off the floor, and then you'd sort of launch your foot over the branch, and then you hit a branch on the ground, and it'd be covered in moss or lichen, and you'd slip off it and fall over and fall on the bike. I lost the computer off the bike, and I didn't damage the bike, but one of the spindles came loose, and it's an expensive bike. I was a bit upset. It's the best one I've ever had, but actually when I compare it to the price of the last one, even though the one I've got now hadn't gone out of date when I bought it, the one I had before had, so it was half the price. The one I've got now is still the same price if you're taking inflation into account as the one I got before, which had halved in price. So yeah, it's not that bad actually. I really like it. It's the best one I've ever had, and the lightest one. Well, you can pick it up with one finger, and well, if it had been a mountain bike, it would have been 10 times as much. A road bike, it's cheap. But yeah, I mean, the legs are all scratched and that from getting brambles. Is it blackberries you call them elsewhere? Oh, yeah, they have thorns on. You catch them on them. At least I didn't puncture my tyres. They have sealant in, but it's about out of date, and the tyres are about worn. Well, not by my standards, but they are worn. But I used to ride my mother's old bike, and my racing bike I had then, it was down to canvas, and I used to ride it in the line of tar at the side of the road on a hot day, and then in the dust so the tyres didn't burst. That was when I was poor.